Ray Bennett's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter at 6:47 on a Tuesday morning in late November. He'd been up since 5:30, same as always, watching frost patterns crawl across the window while his coffee burned in the pot. The house was quiet. Too quiet, the way it had been for 2 years now, since Linda died in the bedroom down the hall. He picked up the phone. Margaret Pierce, his boss, calling before 7. "Ray, office, 9 a.m. sharp. Come alone. This is not optional." The line went dead. Ray stood there holding his phone, coffee mug halfway to his mouth, the burnt smell filling his nose. Margaret's voice had that edge to it. Not anger, something else. Something that made his gut tighten. He set down the coffee, walked out to the shed, oiled Linda's garden tools like he did every morning, hands moving through the ritual even as his mind raced. What the hell did Margaret Pierce want? Ray's truck wouldn't start. 3 turns of the key, nothing but clicking. The battery, probably. He'd been meaning to replace it. He stood in the cold, breath clouding, and looked at the 2-mile walk into town. Margaret had said 9 sharp. He started walking. The snow came light at first, just dusting his shoulders. By the time he reached Pierce Electrical on Main Street, his boots were soaked through and his hands were numb. The office sat above the old hardware store, stairs on the outside that creaked under his weight. Margaret's BMW was parked below, engine still ticking warm. He climbed the stairs, knocked once. "Come in." Margaret sat behind her desk, in a gray suit that probably cost more than his truck. The blinds were drawn. She had a folder in front of her and a pen in her hand, and when she looked up at him, her face was blank as fresh snow. "Sit down, Ray." He sat. Water dripped from his boots onto her carpet. Margaret slid a paper across the desk. "I need you to sign this." Ray looked at it. "Contract," it said at the top. His eyes scanned down, words like "parties agree" and "duration of 12 months," and then a number that made him blink. $75,000. What is this? "A business arrangement." Margaret's voice was flat, clinical. "I need a husband for 1 year. You need money. This solves both problems." Ray stared at her. "You're asking me to pretend, not a real marriage. Separate bedroom, separate lives. You show up to family functions, sit beside me, smile, nod. That's it." She tapped the paper. $75,000? Deposited monthly into an account of your choosing. "Why? That's not your concern." "Like hell it's not." Ray pushed the paper back toward her. "I'm not for sale, Margaret." She opened the folder, pulled out another sheet, bank statements. His bank statements. She'd somehow gotten his account information. The numbers didn't lie. 18,000 in savings, 300 in checking, truck payment overdue, the electric bill with a red past due stamp. "Emma's college fund," Margaret said, pointing to the savings account. 18,000. She'll need 80 for state school, more for anywhere else. She pulled out another page. Your credit score, your late payments, your second mortgage application that got denied last month. Ray's hands curled into fists on his knees. "How did you—" "Your one medical emergency from bankruptcy, Ray. One bad winter from losing the house Linda left you." Margaret's voice softened, just slightly. "I'm offering you a solution." "To what? What's this really about?" "My father's will. There's a clause. I don't get my inheritance unless I'm married by the reading." He wanted to make sure I was settled down with a respectable man. The bitterness in her voice was sharp enough to cut. "You're respectable. You're poor enough to say yes, and you're desperate enough to keep quiet." Ray stood up. "Find someone else." "There is no one else. The will reading is in 3 months. I've already waited too long." She pushed the contract toward him again. "Look at Clause 7. He looked. Saw the words, "All payments to be deposited directly into Emma Bennett College Trust Fund," his daughter's name. In writing. Margaret watched him. "I know you, Ray. You'd walk through fire for that girl. Well, this is easier than fire. It's just sitting beside me at Christmas dinner, answering questions about how we met, sleeping in the guest room, and keeping your mouth shut. And lying to everyone I know? Yes." Ray's chest felt tight. He thought about Emma, junior year, honor roll, basketball scholarships that wouldn't be enough. He thought about Linda, how she'd worked double shifts at the diner to help pay for their house, how she'd have wanted Emma to go to college, to have more than they'd had. He thought about what it would cost him to say yes, what it would cost Emma if he said no. "I need time to think. You have 30 seconds. Margaret picked up her pen. "After that, I'm calling someone else." The office was silent except for the radiator hissing in the corner. Ray looked at the contract, at his bank statements, at Margaret's face, which showed nothing at all except a faint tremor in her hands as she held the pen. He signed. The pen barely worked. He had to press hard enough to indent the paper beneath. Margaret witnessed it, dated it, put it in the folder. "I'll move in this weekend," she said. Guest bedroom. I'll bring my own furniture. Ray walked out without another word. Down the creaking stairs, into snow that was falling harder now. His hands were shaking so bad he had to stop halfway home and lean against a fence post. What had he just done? By the time he reached his driveway, he could see Emma's school bus pulling away from the stop. She'd be home in 10 minutes, and he'd have to look her in the eye and start lying. 2 weeks passed like walking through mud. Margaret moved in on a Saturday. Ray watched from the kitchen window as she unloaded suitcases from her BMW, expensive leather, the kind with wheels and telescoping handles. She'd hired someone to bring furniture for the guest room, a desk, a reading chair, bedside tables that matched nothing else in the house. Emma stood in the doorway when Margaret carried the first suitcase inside. Dad? Who is that? Ray's rehearsed explanation died in his throat. She's a colleague from work. She's going to be staying here for a while. Staying here? Emma's voice went up. Why? It's a business arrangement. She helps with bills. I give her a place to stay. Margaret appeared then, extending a hand to Emma with a professional smile. I'm Margaret. Your father and I work together. Emma didn't shake, just stood there, arms crossed, looking between them. We were fine. Emma, Ray started, but she was already walking away, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Her bedroom door slammed hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. Margaret pulled her hand back. She hates me. She doesn't know you to hate you. That's worse somehow. The routine settled in like frost. Margaret made coffee every morning, 2 cups the way Ray took it, black with 2 sugars. But she never drank hers, just left it on the counter, steaming, untouched. Ray would find it later, cold, and pour it down the sink. Emma stopped eating breakfast with them. She'd grab a granola bar, eat it in her room, leave for school without saying goodbye. Ray tried to talk to her, knocked on her door one night after Margaret had gone to her room. Honey, can we talk? I'm doing homework. Emma, I said I'm busy, Dad. He stood there in the hallway, hand on her doorknob, and heard her move something against the door, blocking it. Sunday morning, Ray made the mistake of bringing Margaret to church. They walked in together, not touching, but together, and the whispers started before they'd even sat down. Ray's usual pew 3rd row from the back, Linda's spot beside him, empty for 2 years, now filled with a woman in expensive clothes who didn't know the hymns. Jolene from the diner turned around during the greeting time. Margaret, is it so nice to finally meet Ray as his friend? The way she said friend made it sound like something else. We're helping each other through difficult times, Margaret said smoothly. Mm-hmm. Jolene's smile was all teeth. Well, isn't that nice? After the service, the church ladies swarmed, questions dressed up as concern, comments about how fast things were moving, pointed looks at Linda's memorial plaque on the wall. Pastor Mike pulled Ray aside by the coffee station. Ray, people are talking. You doing okay? Fine, Pastor. Just complicated. Doors open if you need to talk. No judgment. Ray nodded, couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. In the parking lot, he watched Margaret drive away in her BMW. Separate cars, even to church. The lie was already showing cracks. Jolene appeared at his truck window. Ray, honey, Linda was my friend. You sure about this? He couldn't answer honestly. I appreciate your concern. She walked away shaking her head, already pulling out her phone. That night, Ray woke to voices downstairs. 2 a.m. He grabbed his robe, moved quietly to the hallway. Light spilled from the kitchen. Margaret's voice, harsh and low. I don't care what he suspects. The will is ironclad. Pause. Someone on the phone. Just keep him quiet until March. After that, it doesn't matter. Another pause. No, Ray doesn't know anything. He's not a problem. Ray froze. He's not a problem. She was talking about him, to someone, about something happening in March. I'll handle it, Margaret said it. I always do. The call ended. Ray heard her lean against the counter, heard her breath hitch like she was crying, or trying not to. He crept back to his room, lay in bed staring at the ceiling. What happens in March? Who is he? What doesn't Ray know? The next afternoon, the school called. Mr. Bennett, this is Principal Harris. We need you to come in. There's been an incident with Emma. His stomach dropped. Is she hurt? No, but she was caught helping another student cheat on an exam. Ray drove to the school in a daze. Emma sat in the principal's office, arms crossed, staring at the floor. Emma, Principal Harris said, do you want to explain to your father why you did this? Emma's voice was flat. What's the difference? Everyone's lying about something anyway. The drive home was silent. Ray pulled into the driveway, turned off the truck. Emma reached for the door handle. You're different, Dad. Ever since she moved in, you're lying about something. He opened his mouth to explain, but the contract forbade it. It's complicated, honey. I can't. It's complicated, Emma. Her voice cracked. Mom would be so ashamed of you. And she got out, slammed the door, walked into the house without looking back. Ray sat in his cold truck, knuckles white on the steering wheel, watching his daughter disappear inside. The one person who mattered most, and he was losing her. The ice storm hit on a Tuesday in mid-January. Ray had been watching the weather all day, the sky that particular shade of gray that meant trouble. By 4 p.m., the first freezing rain started tapping against the windows. By 6, the power was out across the valley. Margaret's car sat in the driveway, iced in. She couldn't leave, even if she wanted to. Ray set up the fireplace, dragged out the propane camp stove from the shed. They had 3 days' worth of canned food, maybe 4 if they stretched it. The house went cold fast without the furnace. He could see his breath in the kitchen. Margaret appeared in the doorway wearing a cashmere sweater and wool slacks. Designer clothes. Useless for this. How long will the power be out? Could be a day, could be a week. Ray handed her a blanket from the linen closet. This'll keep you warmer than that sweater. She took it without argument, wrapped it around her shoulders. That first night, they sat on opposite sides of the living room, Ray by the fire with the book he couldn't focus on. Margaret in the armchair with her laptop until the battery died. The silence stretched between them like frozen ground. Thank you, Margaret said finally, for not judging. Ray looked up. Don't know you well enough to judge. She almost laughed. Fair. The second day was harder. The cold seeped through everything. Ray kept the fire going, but the house was big and old and the heat didn't reach far. They moved their sleeping bags into the living room, both of them near the fireplace like campers. Margaret tried to help with breakfast, eggs on the camp stove, and nearly burned herself on the propane flame. Ray took over. Just sit. I got it. I'm not good at sitting or being helped. Yeah, I noticed. He cooked scrambled eggs that came out rubbery. They ate them anyway, sitting on the floor by the fire, because the furniture was too cold. Can I ask about Linda? Margaret said. Ray went still. He hadn't talked about Linda to anyone except Hank. Hadn't said her name out loud in months. What do you want to know? How you survived losing her. Ray stared into the fire, remembered the hospice bed in their bedroom, Linda's hand in his, paper thin and cold. The way she'd smiled at him, even at the end, even through the pain. You don't survive it, he said. You just learn to carry it without falling down. Margaret was quiet for a long time. Then, we met at the county fair. I was judging the electrical wiring competition, the 4-H kids. She was running the bake sale. He smiled despite himself. She couldn't bake worth a damn. Everything was burned or raw. But she smiled at everyone like she'd made them something precious. You really loved her. Still do. He looked at Margaret. Grief doesn't end. It just becomes part of you, like a scar. Margaret's eyes were wet. She wiped them quickly, looked away. My father's dying. Dementia. He doesn't remember me half the time. I'm sorry. I spent 20 years trying to prove I could run his business. He said women are too emotional, that we can't make the hard decisions. Her voice was bitter. So I got an MBA, worked 80-hour weeks, built the company revenue up 40%. And it was never enough. Then there was the restaurant venture. She stopped, shook her head. Doesn't matter, it failed. Proved him right after all. Ray wanted to ask more about the restaurant, but something in her face said the door was closing. He's wrong about you, Ray said. Whatever he said, he's wrong. Margaret looked at him, really looked at him, maybe for the first time since she'd moved in. You don't even know me. I know you make coffee for someone else every morning, even though you don't drink it. I know you visit your father at the hospital every day, even though he doesn't remember you. I know you're trying. Her face crumpled. She turned away, shoulders shaking. Ray didn't touch her. Didn't move, just sat there, bearing witness to her grief the way Hank had borne witness to his. Sometimes that's all you can do for someone. The third day, the power came back. Margaret was in the bathroom when Ray started cleaning up the camp stove. He found a document on the counter, half hidden under her coat. Power of attorney, it said at the top. Henry Pierce grants Margaret Ann Pierce full authority. The date made him stop, May 12th. 2 months before the dementia diagnosis, he knew because Margaret had mentioned it once. July, she'd said. Her father got the diagnosis in July. Why would a healthy man sign over power of attorney? Ray pulled out his phone, Googled power of attorney before dementia. The first article was about estate planning, normal stuff. But the second one, warning signs of elder exploitation. He clicked it. POA signed shortly before diagnosis may indicate coercion or awareness of declining capacity. His stomach turned over. He heard the bathroom door open. Slipped the document back where he'd found it, stepped away from the counter. Margaret emerged, hair damp, looking more relaxed than he'd seen her. Power's back. Thank God. Yeah. She looked at him. What's wrong? Nothing. Just tired. But his mind was racing. The restaurant that failed. The late-night phone call. The power of attorney, dated before the dementia. What happens in March? Margaret moved toward her room, then paused at the doorway. Ray, thank you for talking. I haven't done that in years. He nodded, couldn't speak. She disappeared into her room. Ray stood in the kitchen, staring at the counter where the document had been. He pulled out his phone again. Searched Margaret Pierce Restaurant. Found it. Bella Vista Bistro Billings, MT. Filed for bankruptcy after 4 months. Owner Margaret Pierce defaulted on $380,000 in debts. The timeline hit him like cold water. Restaurant opened in June, closed in October, bankruptcy filed in November, the same months as her father's power of attorney, the same months as his dementia diagnosis. Ray closed his phone, walked to his bedroom, lay down fully clothed on top of the covers. From the guest room, he could hear Margaret crying. Was she the victim here, or was he? He didn't know anymore, and that scared him more than anything. Christmas week, Margaret insisted on hosting her family. It has to look real, she said. My brother's already suspicious. If we don't do this right, he'll contest the will. Ray stood in his kitchen, Linda's kitchen, watching strangers transform it. Margaret had hired someone to deep clean, brought in decorations that cost more than his monthly grocery bill, a real tree, 9 feet tall, that barely fit in the living room. He was cooking Linda's roast beef recipe, working from the stained index card she'd written it on 20 years ago, but he'd forgotten steps. The meat was drying out, the potatoes were lumpy, everything felt wrong. Margaret appeared behind him in a black dress and pearls. More salt, and turn the heat up. I know how to cook. Could have fooled me. But her voice was almost kind. Almost. The doorbell rang at 5:30. Gerald Pierce walked in like he owned the place. Mid-50s, expensive suit, handshake that squeezed too hard and lasted too long. His wife Diane followed. Younger, beautiful, quiet in a way that felt calculated. Ray. Gerald's smile didn't reach his eyes. Finally meeting the man who swept my sister off her feet. Good to meet you. This place is cozy. Gerald's gaze swept the living room, taking inventory. The old furniture, the worn carpet, the framed photos of Ray and Linda that Margaret had insisted he leave up. Very rustic. Margaret appeared with wine glasses. Ray prefers simple living? I'm sure he does. Gerald accepted the wine. So tell me, how did you two meet? Margaret never mentioned dating anyone. Ray's rehearsed answer stuck in his throat. Margaret jumped in smoothly. At work. Ray's been doing electrical contracting for the company for years. We started talking during a job last spring, and she looked at Ray with practiced affection. It just happened. How romantic. Diane spoke for the first time. When did you propose, Ray? October, Margaret said. Very simple. Ray's not one for grand gestures. Gerald moved through the house like a predator. Asked to use the bathroom. Took 15 minutes. When he came back, his eyes had a satisfied gleam. During dinner, the questions kept coming. Where do you sleep? Gerald asked, cutting his overcooked beef. Margaret didn't hesitate. Master bedroom. Ray insisted I take the larger closet. How generous. Gerald's smile was sharp. Must be quite a change from your place in town, Margaret. All that space. I like it here. Emma emerged from her room halfway through the meal. She'd refused to come down earlier, but hunger must have won. She filled a plate in silence, started to take it back upstairs. Emma, honey, Ray said. Join us? She looked at the table, at Margaret in her pearls, at Gerald, watching everything with those predator eyes, at her father, playing house with strangers in her dead mother's kitchen. Something in her face changed. You want to know the truth? Emma's voice cut through the dinner conversation. Emma, Ray started. He's paying her to live here. The words exploded out of her. It's fake, all of it. Mom's barely cold and he's bought a replacement. The table went silent. Diane's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Gerald leaned back, arms crossed, smile spreading. Emma, that's not... Ray tried. But Emma was crying now, years of grief and anger pouring out. You think I'm stupid? I found the papers, Dad. The contract, the money. You sold yourself to her and you think I wouldn't notice? She ran. Her bedroom door slammed so hard, a picture fell off the wall in the hallway. Ray sat frozen, the blood draining from his face. Gerald's smile was triumphant. Well, that was illuminating. Margaret didn't miss a beat. Her face shifted. Concern, embarrassment, a perfect mask of someone caught in an awkward misunderstanding. Emma, poor thing, is confused. She reached across the table toward Ray's hand. He couldn't make himself pull away. Ray has been helping me with my father's estate planning. It's complicated, trust, power of attorney, all very legal. I'm paying him for the consulting work because he won't accept it as a gift. She turned to Gerald. Ray's too proud, so we structured it as a business arrangement. Emma found some of the paperwork, and, well, you heard her. She's grieving her mother. She's angry at me for being here. The lie was perfect, smooth as glass. Even Ray almost believed it. Gerald's smile faded slightly. He couldn't disprove it, not without evidence. But Diane was watching Margaret with those quiet, calculating eyes. And Ray saw recognition there. She worked with numbers, with patterns. She knew something was off. I should check on Emma, Ray said, standing. He climbed the stairs on wooden legs, knocked on Emma's door. Go away. Honey, please, let me explain. I don't want your explanations. I don't want your lies. Her voice cracked. I want my mom back, and I want you to be the person you used to be. Ray tried the handle, locked. He stood there in this hallway, forehead against her door, listening to his daughter sob. 20 minutes later, he found her in Linda's garden shed, sitting on the cold ground, holding Linda's work gloves, the ones with the flowers printed on them. I don't even know who you are anymore, Dad. Ray sat beside her. The shed smelled like oil and earth in Linda's memory. I know you're angry. I'm not angry. Emma looked at him with red eyes. I'm lost, and you're supposed to be the one person I can trust, and you're lying to me. Emma, don't. Just don't. She walked past him, back to the house. Ray sat alone in the shed, surrounded by Linda's things. If she could see him now, what would she say? When he finally went back inside, Gerald was putting on his coat. Ray. Gerald's hand landed on his shoulder, squeezed hard. Walk me out? In the driveway, Gerald pulled out his phone, showed Ray a photo, the guest bedroom. Margaret's suitcase open on the bed, the master bedroom door visible in the background, closed, unused. I took that during my bathroom trip, Gerald said, along with a few others. Your separate bedrooms, the closets, the way you two sit together like strangers. Ray's mouth went dry. I'm hiring an investigator. Gerald's voice was cold. Whatever you and my sister are doing, I'm going to find out. The will reading is in 8 weeks. Plenty of time. He got in his car, rolled down the window. My father deserves the truth. I'm going to give it to him. The taillights disappeared into the snow. Ray stood in his driveway watching them go. Inside, he could see Margaret through the window. Diane was talking to her, and Margaret's perfect mask had finally cracked. She looked terrified. And Ray realized he was being hunted by someone who already had evidence. The week after Christmas, Emma went to stay with her Aunt Jean. Just for a while, Dad. I need space. Ray helped her pack. Watched her fold clothes into the same duffel bag she'd used for basketball tournaments. She took Linda's old sweatshirt, the photo album from her nightstand, her mother's work gloves from the garden shed. How long? I don't know. She wouldn't look at him. Until you figure out who you want to be. The house felt enormous after she left. Ray would come home from work to find Margaret's car gone. She was spending more time in Billings, she said. Business. But he thought maybe she was avoiding him. Avoiding what had happened at Christmas. Avoiding the truth that was closing in on both of them. He ate cereal standing at the sink. Couldn't remember the last time he'd cooked a real meal. The TV stayed on just for the noise. Voices to fill the silence. To keep him from thinking about how badly he'd screwed everything up. He texted Emma every day. Honey, please come home. We need to talk. I love you. That's not fake. Call me when you're ready. The responses came back one word at a time. Fine, busy, later. On the 4th day, he realized he hadn't spoken out loud in 6 hours. Gerald's investigation wasn't subtle. Ray saw him everywhere. At the job site where Ray was rewiring a barn, Gerald's car parked down the road watching. At the diner during Ray's morning coffee, Gerald in a booth across the restaurant making no effort to hide. At church on Sunday, standing in the parking lot afterward, phone to his ear, eyes on Ray the whole time. The questions started filtering back through the town. Ray's coworkers at the barn. That guy was asking about you. Wanted to know how long you'd been seeing Margaret, if we'd met her. Jolene at the diner, pouring his coffee with worried eyes. Ray, honey, a man's been coming around asking questions. Says he's Margaret's brother. You in some kind of trouble? The hardware store owner, casual as anything while Ray was buying furnace parts. Heard you got yourself a new situation. That true? The young clerk whispered to his coworker behind the register. Both of them laughed. Ray left without buying the parts. Couldn't stand the eyes on him anymore. Pastor Mike called on Wednesday. Ray, I'm hearing things. People are concerned. I'm concerned. Can you come see me? I'm handling it, Pastor. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're drowning. Ray hung up, stared at his phone. Wanted to call Emma, to hear her voice, to explain everything. But the contract sat in his desk drawer like a prison sentence. He couldn't tell her the truth. Couldn't even defend himself? Sunday morning, Ray sat alone in church. His pew, the one he'd shared with Linda for 33 years, the one Emma had sat in as a child swinging her legs, felt too big now. Pastor Mike's sermon was on truth and consequences. The truth will set you free, Pastor Mike said from the pulpit. But first, it might cost you everything. Ray felt every word like a nail going in. After the service, Gerald was waiting in the parking lot. He didn't approach, just stood by his Mercedes, phone in hand, watching Ray walk to his truck. Their eyes met across the lot. Gerald smiled, made a call without breaking eye contact. Ray got in his truck. His hands were shaking so bad he had to sit for 5 minutes before he could drive. Thursday evening, Hank showed up with a thermos of coffee. "You look like hell, son." Ray was on his porch, jacket open despite the January cold. He hadn't shaved in 3 days, hadn't eaten anything but cereal and black coffee. "I'm fine." "Bullshit." Hank sat down beside him. "You're dying inside. I can see it." They sat in silence. Hank poured coffee into 2 tin cups. The steam rose between them. "You want to talk about it?" Ray's throat closed. He'd been holding everything in for so long. The contract, the lies, Emma's absence, Gerald's hunt. It was like carrying concrete blocks in his chest. "I can't." "Can't or won't?" "Does it matter?" Hank was quiet for a long time. Down the street, a dog barked. Someone's Christmas lights were still up, blinking red and green in the twilight. "My son," Hank said finally. "Before he died, the OxyContin. I knew something was wrong, saw the signs. But he kept saying he was fine, and I let him keep lying, told myself it wasn't my business to push." He sipped his coffee. Found him 3 months later, overdosed in his apartment, alone. Ray looked at him. Hank's face was carved from stone, but his eyes were wet. "I'm not saying you're using drugs, Ray. I'm saying you're drowning and you won't grab the rope. And I'm not going to stand by and watch another man I care about go under." Something in Ray broke. The words came pouring out. The contract, the $75,000, Margaret's dying father and his will, the fake marriage, the separate bedrooms, Emma's explosion at Christmas, Gerald's investigation, the photos of their separate lives. "I did it for Emma," Ray said, and his voice cracked. "The college fund. She deserves better than what I can give her. But now she won't even talk to me. And I'm being hunted by a man who has evidence, and I don't know what to do." Hank listened to all of it, didn't interrupt, didn't judge. When Ray finished, Hank was quiet for a long time. "You did a dumb thing for a good reason," he said finally. Ray almost laughed. "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "No, supposed to make you realize you're not a bad man, just a desperate one." Hank turned to face him. "But here's what I know. Desperate people do desperate things. And your boss, she's desperate too." What do you mean?" "Think about it. Why would a successful businesswoman pay 75 grand to a man she barely knows? Why hire you instead of finding some actual boyfriend? Why the rush?" Hank's eyes were sharp. "She's not just securing an inheritance, Ray. She's running from something." Ray thought about the late-night phone call, the power of attorney dated before the dementia, the failed restaurant. I think there's more to this. Something she's not telling me." Then find out." Hank stood. "My nephew Tom works at the county clerk's office. Property records, financial filings, all that legal stuff, public record. Anyone can request them. That's smart. That's what it is." Hank looked down at him. "You need to know what you're really involved in, Ray, before Gerald exposes it and you go down with her." And Ray sat with that for a moment. "You think she's done something illegal?" "I think you should find out, before it's too late." 3 days later, Ray's phone rang. "Hank, nephew found something. Meet me at Silver Creek Diner tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. "Can you tell me now?" "Not on the phone." Hank's voice was grim. "And Ray, bring coffee. You're going to need it." Ray sat in his kitchen after the call ended. Margaret's car was in the driveway. She was home for once, holed up in the guest room. He looked at her closed door. Tomorrow he'd learn the truth. Tonight, he still had the choice to walk away, to keep taking the money, to keep lying. But Hank's words echoed in his head. "You're drowning and you won't grab the rope." Ray stood, walked to Emma's room, empty, clean, waiting for her to come home. He picked up his phone, texted her, "I love you, honey, and I'm going to fix this. I promise." No response. He went to bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling until dawn came. Tomorrow, everything would change. He could feel it. The Silver Creek Diner smelled like burnt coffee and bacon grease. Ray slid into the back booth at 9:55. Hank was already there, manila envelope on the table between them. Tom sat beside his uncle, 30-something, county clerk badge clipped to his belt, nervous energy radiating off him like heat. "Uncle Hank said you needed this." And Tom pushed the envelope toward Ray. It's all public record. Anyone could request it. I probably shouldn't be here when you read it. He left before Ray could thank him. Hank poured coffee from the pot Jolene had brought over. You ready? Ray's hands were shaking. No. Open it anyway. The first document was a property transfer. Ray recognized the address, the Pierce family ranch, 200 acres outside town, sold to a development company for $180,000. Signed by Margaret Pierce, power of attorney. Date, September 14th. Her father's ranch, Hank said quietly. She sold it. The next page, bank withdrawal records. Margaret's signature, using the power of attorney. Withdrawals spanning June through October. Never more than $9,000 at a time, just under the reporting threshold. Hank's finger traced down the column. $127,000, all withdrawn in 6 months. Ray's stomach turned over. More documents, business filings. Bella Vista Bistro, Margaret A. Pierce, owner. Initial investment, $380,000. Opening date, June 15th. Closure date, October 3rd. Bankruptcy filing, November 1st. 4 months, Ray said. The restaurant lasted 4 months. Hank pulled out a timeline he'd written on notebook paper. Look at the dates, Ray. May 12th, power of attorney signed. June 15th, restaurant opens, first withdrawals from father's accounts. July 8th, father's dementia diagnosis. August 15th, father's lawyer adds marriage clause to will. September-October, continued withdrawals, property sale. October 3rd, restaurant closes. November 1st, bankruptcy filed. November 20th, Margaret offers Ray the contract. She stole from him, Ray said. The words felt like gravel in his throat. Her own father. Looks that way. The dementia diagnosis, the marriage clause, that was him fighting back. Ray saw it now, clear as glass. He knew she'd stolen. He couldn't prove it, or he was too sick to press charges. So he added the marriage clause to force accountability. Give her a partner who might notice the missing money. And she found someone desperate enough not to ask questions. Ray sat back against the vinyl booth. Felt sick. I helped her cover it up. I've been living in her house, playing her husband, while she stole $400,000 from a dying man. You didn't know. I knew something was wrong. The late-night phone calls, the power of attorney. I knew, and I took the money anyway. Jolene appeared with the coffee pot, took one look at Ray's face and backed away without a word. Hank gave him time, let him process. Finally, what are you gonna do? Ray thought about Emma, about the college fund that was supposed to make everything worth it, about the old man in the hospice bed who thought his daughter had finally found love. I don't know. Well, reading's in 2 weeks. I know. Gerald's investigation is going to find this eventually. Maybe already has. Hank's voice was gentle but firm. You need to decide what side you're on before someone decides for you. Ray gathered the documents, slid them back into the envelope. Can I keep these? They're yours. Ray sat in his truck outside the hospital for an hour. Margaret's BMW was in the parking lot. She visited her father every day, dutiful daughter, crying in the parking lot before and after, making sure no one saw. Was it guilt or was it performance? He watched her emerge at 4:30. Even from a distance, he could see her wiping her eyes. Her shoulders shook. She got in her car and drove away without seeing him. Ray followed her home, pulled into the driveway, right behind her. She was in the kitchen when he came in. Wine glass already in hand, laptop open on the counter. He threw the envelope on the table. Margaret looked at it. Her face went white. How much did you find? All of it. Ray's voice was steady, colder than he'd known it could be. 400,000, the restaurant, your father's ranch, the power of attorney you used to steal from a dying man. Margaret closed her laptop slowly. I can explain. You used me. You made me complicit in elder abuse. You turned me into your accomplice. I turned you into a father who can send his daughter to college. Margaret's voice rose. Don't pretend you're innocent here, Ray. You took the money knowing something was wrong. You didn't ask questions because you didn't want answers. The truth of it hit him like a fist. You're right, he said quietly. I didn't want to know, but I know now. Margaret sat down, picked up her wine glass with shaking hands. The restaurant was going to prove him wrong. 20 years of women can't run businesses, and you're too emotional and stick to what you know. I was finally going to show him. Her voice cracked. It failed in 4 months, Ray. 4 months. I lost everything. His investment, my savings, everything. And I couldn't tell him. Couldn't admit he was right all along. So you stole. I borrowed. I meant to pay it back. By forging his signature, selling his property. He found out. Margaret's tears were falling now. The dementia wasn't as bad as everyone thinks. He knew. He added the marriage clause to punish me, to force me to have the keeper. Someone who'd notice what I'd done. So you made sure I wouldn't notice. You found someone desperate enough to stay quiet. Margaret didn't deny it. Ray's phone buzzed. Emma. Dad? I'm ready to come home. I want to talk. He stared at the message, at Margaret crying in his kitchen, at the envelope full of evidence. What are you going to do? Margaret asked. I don't know, but I can't keep lying. Not to Emma. If you tell her, you have to explain why. And if you explain why, Margaret looked at him with red eyes. You lose the contract, Emma loses her college fund, and you'll have to admit you were complicit. As Ray typed back to Emma, Honey, can you give me a few more days? The response came immediately. You're still lying, aren't you? Then nothing. He called. It went to voicemail. He tried again. She'd blocked him. Ray sat in his truck in the hospital parking lot at dusk, watching windows light up as visiting hours began. He was losing everything anyway. The money, his daughter, his self-respect. What was the point of staying silent? The week before the will reading, Ray stopped sleeping. He'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. Margaret, moving around in the guest room, the furnace kicking on and off. His own heartbeat too loud in his ears. Every morning he'd work electrical jobs on autopilot, rewiring panels, running conduit, his hands doing what they'd done for 35 years while his mind spun in circles. Tell the truth, lose everything, stay silent, lose himself. Emma still wasn't answering his calls. Margaret barely came home. When she did, she avoided him. Left early, came back late, communicated through notes on the counter. Visiting Dad. Back tonight. Hank stopped by every day, brought food Ray didn't eat, sat on the porch and didn't push, just stayed nearby, in case Ray was ready to talk. You look like a ghost, son. Feel like one. On Sunday, Ray went to church alone, sat in his pew, and heard nothing of the sermon except one line that cut through the fog. The truth will set you free, but first it might cost you everything. After the service, Gerald was waiting by the Mercedes. He didn't approach, just caught Ray's eye across the parking lot, smiled, made a call. Ray drove home with his hands white-knuckled on the wheel. Thursday afternoon, Ray's phone rang. Hospital. Mr. Bennett, Mr. Pierce is asking for you. I'm not family. He specifically requested you, says it's important. Ray drove to the hospital with dread pooling in his gut. The hospice wing smelled like antiseptic and dying flowers. Henry Pierce was in room 412, propped up on pillows, more skeleton than man now, but his eyes were clear. Margaret wasn't there. Ray. The old man's voice was surprisingly strong. Sit. Ray sat in the visitor's chair, uncomfortable plastic that squeaked. Henry studied him. You look terrible. Ray almost laughed. It's been a hard week. Margaret does that to people. High maintenance. That girl. But there was fondness in his voice, not criticism. You're good for her, though. She's smiling again, first time in years. Ray's chest compressed. The old man thought of the marriage was real. I wanted to tell you something, Henry continued. Before I go. He reached for Ray's hand. His grip was weak but insistent. I wasn't kind to her, my daughter. Told her she couldn't run a business. That women were too emotional for that kind of work. Tears tracked down his weathered face. I'm proud of her now. Wish I'd said it sooner. She built that company into something real. Sir, tell her I'm proud. Promise me. Before I die, tell her. Ray couldn't speak, just nodded. Henry's eyes were wet. She's terrified of ending up alone, like me. He gestured at the empty room. Wife dead 20 years. Son visits out of obligation. Daughter, I drove away with my bullshit. Don't let her end up like this, Ray. Alone, in a white room, with nothing but regrets. He squeezed Ray's hand. And don't let Gerald take everything. He only cares about the money. But you, I can see it in you. You're a good man, an honest man. The word honest hit Ray like a slap. You'll do right by her, Henry said, drifting toward sleep. I know you will. His hand slipped from Ray's. His breathing evened out into the rhythm of morphine dreams. Ray sat there for 10 minutes, frozen. This man was dying believing his daughter had found love, believing Ray was honorable, believing the lie Margaret had constructed. If Ray told the truth, Henry would die knowing his daughter was a thief, that the marriage was fake, that he'd been fooled in his weakest moments. But if Ray stayed silent, Henry died, at peace with a lie. Which was the greater cruelty? Ray walked out to the parking lot, found Margaret waiting by her car. She'd been there the whole time, listening through the door. He asked you to protect me. Yeah. Are you going to? Ray couldn't answer. Margaret's face was raw. Friday. Will reading. Gerald's bringing his lawyer and his evidence. She looked at him. Whatever you're going to do, You'd better be sure. She drove away. Ray sat in his truck as the sun set, called Hank. I don't know what the right thing is anymore. I can't see it. And son, I've been alive 70 years. The right thing is usually the hard thing. What if it destroys everything? Then you rebuild, but you rebuild on truth, not lies. Friday morning, day of the will reading. Ray's phone rang at 8 a.m. Gerald. Don't bother coming to the hospital today, Ray. What? My lawyer has everything. Photos, witness statements, bank records showing no joint accounts. Your fake marriage is done. Margaret forfeits this inheritance. Save yourself the embarrassment. The line went dead. Ray sat in his kitchen, coffee cold in front of him, the contract in its folder on the table. Margaret emerged from her room, dressed in black, like she was going to a funeral. Maybe she was. Gerald called you too? Ray nodded. He's going to destroy me today. Her voice was flat, resigned. Everything I've done, everything I've tried to build, gone. Maybe you deserve it. She flinched, but didn't argue. Yeah, maybe I do. She picked up her keys, paused at the door. For what it's worth, the ice storm. That wasn't fake. Doesn't matter now. No, I suppose it doesn't. She left. Ray sat alone in the silence. Thought about Emma, about the college fund that was already lost, about the old man in the hospice bed who'd asked Ray to protect his daughter, about Margaret's tears that might have been real or might have been another performance, about the man he used to be before he signed that contract. He stood, walked to his bedroom, put on his funeral suit, the one he'd worn when they buried Linda, looked at himself in the mirror, gaunt, tired, but something had shifted in his eyes. He'd made his decision. He was going to that will reading, and he was going to tell the truth. All of it. Even if it burned everything to the ground. Ray picked up his phone, called Hank. It's today, will reading at 2 p.m. You sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. You need me there? No, this is mine to do. He hung up, checked his reflection one more time. Then he drove to the hospital with steady hands. Time to stop lying. Time to face what he'd become. Time to find out if there was any way back. The hospital conference room smelled like bleach and old coffee. Ray arrived at 1:50. The room was already full. Henry Pierce sat in a wheelchair at the head of the table, oxygen tube in his nose, but eyes sharp. They'd lowered his morphine for this. He wanted to be present for the reading of his own will. Margaret sat beside her father, hands folded in her lap. She'd been crying. Her mascara was smudged at the corners. Gerald sat across from them, his lawyer beside him, a thin man in an expensive suit with a briefcase full of evidence. Gerald's wife Diane sat quietly, watching everything with those calculating CPA eyes. Mr. Henshaw, the estate attorney, sat at the head of the table with documents spread in front of him. He looked deeply uncomfortable. Nurse Rosa stood by the door. A witness, Ray realized. They needed witnesses for this. Ray took the empty seat at the far end. Everyone turned to look at him. What's he doing here? Gerald said. Henry's voice was weak but clear. I asked him to come. He's family. Gerald's jaw tightened. Henshaw cleared his throat. Before we begin the formal reading, Mr. Gerald Pierce has requested to present evidence regarding the marriage is fraudulent. Gerald interrupted. He pulled the investigation file from his briefcase, slapped it on the table. Photos spilled out, the separate bedrooms, Margaret's suitcase in the guest room, the master bedroom door, closed and unused, Ray and Margaret arriving at church in separate cars, standing together at Christmas dinner with the body language of strangers. They're not married, Gerald said. They've never been married. My sister hired this man to satisfy the will's marriage clause. It's a scam. Margaret's lawyer started to object, but Gerald kept going. I have witness statements from neighbors, from church members, from people who've seen them together. He pulled out more documents. Bank records showing no joint accounts, no shared expenses. They don't even eat meals together. Henshaw looked at Margaret. Ms. Pierce, do you have a response to these allegations? Margaret opened her mouth, closed it, looked at Ray with something like desperation. This was the moment. She was waiting for him to back her up, to support the lie they'd been living. Ray stood. He's right. The room went silent. Margaret's face drained of color. The marriage is fake, Ray continued. His voice was steady, calmer than he felt. Margaret hired me for $75,000, 1 year, pretend to be her husband for family functions, live in the same house, satisfy the will's marriage clause. He pulled the contract from his jacket pocket, set it on the table. We've never been married. We sleep in separate rooms. It's all fake. Every bit of it. Gerald looked triumphant. Then she forfeits the inheritance. But Gerald doesn't know everything, Ray said. He pulled out the envelope Hank's nephew had given him. The public records, the property transfers, the withdrawal statements. Your sister didn't just hire me to get the inheritance. She hired me to cover up a crime. Margaret made a small sound, almost a whimper. Ray spread the documents across the table. Margaret stole approximately $400,000 from your father over 6 months. She used power of attorney to withdraw money from his accounts, forged his signature, sold his ranch without permission. The room erupted. Gerald's shock, Diane's sharp intake of breath, Henshaw scrambling to look at the documents, Henry's labored breathing getting faster. She invested it in a restaurant, Ray continued. Bella Vista Bistro in Billings. It failed in 4 months. She lost everything, his money, her money, all of it, and she was too ashamed to tell him. He looked at Henry. Sir, your daughter stole from you. She committed fraud, elder abuse. She made terrible choices. Margaret was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. But, Ray said, and his voice softened, she made those choices because you spent her whole life telling her she wasn't good enough, that women can't run businesses, that she was too emotional, that she'd fail. Henry's eyes were locked on Ray's face. She was trying to prove you wrong. The restaurant was supposed to show she could do it, build something on her own, make you proud. Ray's throat tightened. It failed, and instead of asking for help, she stole. Because she couldn't admit you were right. Because she'd rather be a criminal than a failure in your eyes. He turned to Gerald. And you're not wrong about the theft. But let's be honest, you're not here to protect your father. You want the money. You've wanted it your whole life. The successful younger brother, finally getting what the favorite daughter had. Diane's hand moved to Gerald's arm, a gentle pressure. She knew it was true. I took Margaret's money, Ray said, for my daughter's college fund. I knew something was wrong. I didn't ask questions because I didn't want to know the answers. I'm complicit in this. All of it. He looked around the table. Nobody in this room is innocent. We've all got blood on our hands. We've all chosen lies over truth because it was easier. Henry spoke for the first time. His voice was barely a whisper. Ray. Everyone turned. The old man's eyes were clear, sharp, and there was something in them, not surprise, something else. He smiled. Thank you. Ray blinked. For what? For telling the truth. Finally, someone in this room told the truth. A long pause. Then Henry looked at Margaret, at Gerald, back to Ray. You think I'm a fool? I knew the marriage was fake from day one. Shock rippled through the room. Margaret gasped. Dad, how? Build a business by reading people. You two walked in here like strangers pretending to be lovers. Could have spotted it from 3 counties away. Gerald leaned forward. Then why didn't you? Because I wanted to see who'd break first. Henry's gaze swept the room. Who'd choose honesty when it cost them everything? He looked at Ray. You did. You're fired from being my son-in-law. Ray nodded, accepting it. But I'd like to hire you as executor of my estate. The room exploded. Gerald's objection. Margaret's confusion. Henshaw trying to restore order. Henry raised a shaking hand. Quiet. All of you. He turned to Henshaw. Change the will. Now. I want it in writing before I lose my nerve. And Henshaw pulled out his laptop. Mr. Pierce, are you certain? Type what I say. Margaret gets a trust. She can't touch the principal until she repays every dollar she stole. With interest. Margaret's face crumpled. Gerald administers the trust. Makes sure the money's used properly. No embezzling, no hiding, everything on the books. Gerald's triumph faded. You want me to work with her? I want you to learn to work with your sister without trying to destroy her. Prove you're not just in this for the money. Henry's breathing was labored now. Rosa moved closer, checking his monitors. Ray oversees both of them, executor. He makes sure you two don't kill each other. And he does it honestly, which is more than I can say for anyone else in this family. This is insane, Gerald said. This is fair. Henry looked at Margaret. You'll make restitution. You'll get therapy. You'll prove you can be honest. Then, and only then, you'll run my company the way I should have let you years ago. Margaret was sobbing now. Dad, I'm so sorry. I know. His voice gentled. I'm sorry too. For making you think you had to be perfect. For making you so afraid of failing that you'd rather steal than ask for help. He looked at Gerald. And you'll get your inheritance. After you prove you can put family before greed. To Ray, and you lose the contract, you lose the money, but you get something more valuable. You get to look yourself in the mirror. Henshaw typed furiously. Rosa and Diane witnessed the new will on the laptop screen. It was done in 10 minutes. Henry sank back into his wheelchair, exhausted. Now get out, all of you, except Ray. The family filed out slowly, Gerald furious, Margaret dazed and broken, Diane sympathetic. When they were alone, Henry looked at Ray. You could have kept quiet, kept the money. No, sir, I couldn't. Linda, your late wife. Henry's eyes were knowing. She'd be proud of you today. Ray's vision blurred. I hope so. Go home. Tell your daughter the truth. Hug her. Henry's breathing was shallow now. Trust me, she'll forgive you faster than you think. Kids are like that. They just want honesty. Ray stood, hesitated. Sir, she wanted me to tell you, Margaret, that you should be proud of her. Henry smiled. Tell her I am. Tell her I always was. I just forgot to say it. Ray walked out to the parking lot, found Margaret by his truck, makeup streaked, shaking. You exposed me. You ruined everything. I gave you a chance, Ray said. Your father knows the truth, and he still loves you. He's still proud of you. The money's gone. The contract's void. Her voice broke. How will you pay for Emma's college now? I don't know, but I'll figure it out without lying to her. Margaret studied him. You're either the most honest man I've ever met or the biggest fool. Maybe both. His phone showed 7 missed calls, all from Emma. I have to go. He drove away, leaving Margaret in the parking lot, alone, with the consequences of everything they'd both done. The sun was setting over the valley. His phone rang again. Emma, he answered. Dad, I heard Aunt Jean's friend works at the hospital. She said there was some kind of scene at Grandpa Pierce's will reading. What happened? Ray pulled over, took a breath. I needed to tell you something, honey. Everything. The truth. Can I come see you? Silence. Then, yeah, I'm ready to hear it. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He drove toward his sister-in-law's house with the windows down, cold February air rushing in, feeling like he could breathe for the first time in months. Ray pulled into Aunt Jean's driveway just as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. Emma was waiting on the porch, wrapped in Linda's old sweatshirt, her breath clouding in the cold. She didn't run to him, didn't smile, just stood there, arms crossed, waiting. Ray got out of the truck, walked up the steps slowly. Can we talk? Emma nodded, sat down on the porch swing. Ray sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. I need to tell you everything, he said, and I need you to let me finish before you decide if you hate me. I don't hate you, Dad. Her voice was small. I don't know who you are anymore. So Ray told her, all of it. The contract, the $75,000, Margaret's dying father and his will, the fake marriage, the separate bedrooms, the lies to everyone they knew. Emma listened without interrupting, her face unreadable in the porch light. I did it for you, Ray said, for your college fund. I thought I was protecting your future, but I was really just too proud to admit I couldn't afford to send you to school on my own. Dad. Let me finish. He swallowed hard. I lied to you, to Hank, to Pastor Mike, to everyone who trusted me. And the worst part is, I told myself it was okay because my intentions were good. But good intentions don't make lies true. He pulled the contract from his pocket, the one he'd retrieved from his desk before leaving the hospital. Today I told the truth at the will reading. I exposed everything, the fake marriage, Margaret's crimes, my own complicity. I lost the contract, lost the money. Emma took the contract, read it in the porch light. Her eyes stopped on Clause 7. All payments to be deposited directly into Emma Bennett College Trust Fund. You did it for me, she whispered, the whole time. That doesn't make it right. No, she looked at him. But I understand why. She leaned against his shoulder. The first physical contact they'd had in months. Ray's arm came around her automatically, and she didn't pull away. I'm still mad at you, she said. I know. And I don't forgive you. Not yet. Trust doesn't come back that fast. I know that too. They sat in silence, the swing creaking beneath them. Down the street, someone's wind chimes rang in the February breeze. Mom would have been furious, Emma said finally. Yeah. But she would have understood, eventually. Emma pulled back to look at him. She always said you had more pride than sense, that you'd rather break your back than ask for help. Ray almost laughed, almost cried. She knew me too well. So what happens now, without the money? I don't know. I'll figure it out. Get a second mortgage, maybe. You've got scholarships. We'll make it work. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, I can get a job, work part-time during school. I'm not too good for that. She sounded so much like Linda in that moment that Ray's chest ached. We'll figure it out together, he said. No more lies, no more secrets, just honest work and honest talk. Yeah, Emma nodded. Together. A week later, Ray drove Emma home. She'd packed her things from Aunt Jean's, said her goodbyes, climbed into his truck without hesitation. The silence on the drive wasn't comfortable yet, but it wasn't hostile either. It was just quiet. The kind of quiet where healing could happen. When they pulled into the driveway, Margaret's BMW was gone. She'd moved out while Ray was gone, left a note on the kitchen counter. Thank you for the hardest kindness anyone's ever shown me. Starting therapy next week. First restitution payment goes out Friday. You gave me something I didn't know I needed. A chance to do this right. M. Emma read the note over his shoulder. You think she'll actually change? I think she'll try. That's all any of us can do. The days settled into a new rhythm. Not the old one. That was gone forever, buried with the lies. But something different. Something built on honesty instead of performance. Ray worked his electrical jobs. Applied for a second mortgage. The bank approved it, barely. The payments would be tight, but manageable. Emma joined him for coffee every morning on the porch. A new ritual. She'd ask him to tell Linda stories, and he would. The good ones and the hard ones. The way Linda had sung off-key in the shower. The way she'd fought through cancer treatments with more courage than Ray had ever possessed. Emma shared her own memories. Things Ray didn't know. Conversations she'd had with her mother in those final weeks. Linda telling her to take care of Ray, to forgive him when he was stubborn, to remember that pride was his weakness but love was his strength. She knew you'd do something like this, Emma said one morning. The contract, I mean. She told me you'd try to save the world for me, even if it killed you. What else did she say? That when you did, I should be mad, but then I should forgive you, because you'd do it out of love, not selfishness. Ray's coffee blurred in his vision. 2 weeks after the will reading, Hank came over with a bottle of whiskey and 3 glasses. Figure we earned this, he said. They sat on the porch, Ray, Emma, Hank. The March evening was mild, the first hint of spring in the air, ice breaking up in the creek, crocuses pushing through the frozen ground in Linda's garden. Hank poured 3 fingers in each glass, handed one to Emma. I'm 16, she protested. 1 sip won't kill you. This is educational. Hank raised his glass. To telling the truth even when it costs everything. They drank. Emma sipped and made a face that had Hank and Ray laughing for the first time in months. That's horrible, she said, pushing the glass away. That's whiskey, kid. It's supposed to burn. Hank settled back in his chair. Your old man did a good thing. Took real courage. Or real stupidity, Ray said. Sometimes they're the same thing. Emma looked between them. So what happens with Ms. Pierce and her brother? Monthly meetings, Ray said. I oversee the trust. Make sure Margaret's making restitution payments. Make sure Gerald's not trying to steal the company out from under her. It's... He searched for the word. Complicated. Will she run the company again? Eventually? If she earns it back. If she proves she can be honest. Ray shrugged. That's up to her. Hank poured himself another glass. Heard through the grapevine that Henry Pierce passed last night. Peaceful, in his sleep, Ray nodded. He'd known it was coming. At least he knew the truth before he went. That's worth something. Yeah, it is. Sunday morning, Ray removed his wedding ring. He'd worn it for 33 years of marriage and 2 years of widowhood. But it was time. Not to forget Linda. He'd never forget her. But to accept that grief was permanent. Part of him now. Not something to overcome. Just something to carry. He placed the ring in the small wooden box where Linda kept her garden gloves. Closed the lid gently. Emma found him in the shed. You okay? Yeah, I think I am. Want to plant the garden today? Mom always started in March. Ray looked at his daughter. At the shed, full of Linda's tools, maintained and oiled but unused for 2 years. At the garden plot outside, frozen and empty. You remember how? She taught me the year before she died. I just wasn't ready before. They worked together in the cold March soil, turning earth, planting early vegetables, peas, lettuce, spinach. Emma wore Linda's work gloves. Ray wore his own, cracked and stained from decades of work. They didn't talk much, just worked side by side, finding a rhythm. Emma unearthed something while digging. A bulb Linda had planted and forgotten, dormant all this time, waiting underground. Should we dig it up? Ray looked at the bulb, thought about things that survive winter and darkness, that wait for the right time to grow. No, leave it, see what happens. They planted around it, covered it gently. Sometimes things survive winter underground. Sometimes they come back stronger for the waiting. Late March evening, Ray and Emma on the porch. She was doing homework, highlighting passages in her history textbook. Ray was reviewing contractor bids for a barn rewiring job. Hank's porch light came on next door. He waved. Ray waved back. Simple, ordinary, honest. Emma looked up from her homework. Dad, do you regret it? The contract, the lying, all of it? Ray considered the question honestly. I regret the lying. Don't regret fighting for your future, but I learned there's no shortcut to doing right. The long way is the only way that works. Would you do it again? No, because next time I'd ask for help before it got desperate. I'd trust people. Trust you. He looked at her. Your mom tried to teach me that. Took me losing everything to finally learn it. Emma nodded, went back to her homework. Ray watched the stars come out over the valley. Life was harder now, poorer, more uncertain. The second mortgage payments would stretch them thin. Emma would work part-time at the diner while juggling school and basketball. They'd eat a lot of rice and beans, but his daughter trusted him again. And he could look himself in the mirror. That was worth more than $75,000. Worth more than comfort or security or pride. In the shed, Linda's tools waited for morning. In the garden, seeds pushed toward light. In the house, coffee mugs sat ready for dawn. Life went on. Honest, hard, real, and that was enough. Ray sat on his porch at dawn, same as he had every morning for 40 years, but different now. Emma appeared with 2 coffee mugs. She'd started making it for both of them, strong and black, the way Linda had taught her. She handed him one and sat in the chair beside him, pulling her knees up under Linda's old sweatshirt. They watched the valley wake up. Hank's truck pulling out for an early fishing trip. Church bells starting their Sunday ring across town. The smell of soil from the garden, thawing and ready. Ray thought about the man he'd been 6 months ago, desperate, prideful, willing to sell his dignity for a check and call it love. He'd lost $75,000. Nearly lost his daughter, lost the comfortable lie that he could handle everything alone. Got back something he couldn't put a price on. Used to think dignity meant what you could endure, how much weight you could carry without asking for help, how much you could suffer in silence and call it strength. Learned different. Dignity wasn't what you could endure, it was what you refused to become, a liar. A man his daughter couldn't trust, someone who'd sell his integrity and call it sacrifice. Emma leaned against his shoulder, coffee steaming between her hands. Love you, Dad. Love you too, honey. Down the road, Hank's truck circled back, pulled into the driveway. He got out with fishing rods and a thermos. Thought you two might want to come along. Creek's running full. Trout should be biting. Emma looked at Ray. He looked at the contractor bids on his lap, the bills, the work that would always be there. Yeah, he said. Let's go. They loaded into Hank's truck. Chosen family, honest company, simple morning. Ray watched the valley pass by the window, Linda's garden growing behind them. Emma laughing at something Hank said. Spring coming despite everything. You could lose everything and still have what mattered. Turned out that was the only truth worth knowing.